$350 billion, the amount of damage that the World Bank estimates has been done to Ukraine by Russia since February 25th. $105 billion, the amount of aid that the United States has given to Ukraine since February 25th, that is military and economic, including the latest supplemental, $105 billion in 10 months. And over 100,000 casualties. The estimate, yes, for Russia's dead and wounded by the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, but it is also the estimate of the number of Ukrainians who have been killed and wounded since this war began. Petro Poroshenko does not need an introduction. He's the 5th president of Ukraine, also former Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of Trade and Economic Development, and the former head of the Council of the National Bank. Mr. President, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Nick.
Let me read 2 quotations for you. Andrei Yermak said this yesterday: "There will be peace when not a single Russian soldier remains on Ukrainian soil. There are 2 ways to achieve that peace. The Russian soldiers can either leave Ukrainian soil or rest in Ukrainian soil. We leave the choice of wording to them." Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Mark Milley, 10 days ago: "There has to be a mutual recognition that military victory is probably, in the true sense of the word, maybe not achievable through military means, and therefore you need to turn to other means. So when there's an opportunity to negotiate, when peace can be achieved, seize it. Seize the moment." Who's right, Mark Milley or Andrei Yermak?
Nick, this is a very good question. And that's why we are here today. And I want to thank the person because of whom we are here. This is from all of my heart, from all of Ukrainian people. I want to say gratitude to the Peter, a friend of Ukraine, a friend of us. And not only Peter, but the whole team who doing a fantastic job for make world safer. Great job, Peter. Second, before answering on the Nick question, I want to tell you that today, with the blue and yellow flag, Ukraine saved the world. And this is not a parasol, this is the shield which Ukraine built together with our Western partners to protect the world against the Russia's evil, against crazy maniac Putin. And I want to kindly ask you to pay a tribute to Ukrainian Armed Forces, which we jointly created since year 2014, to the Ukrainian soldiers, to Ukrainian officers, to the Ukrainian volunteers, and to the Ukrainian general, including General Zaluzhny, the Iron General, who is the organizing the armed forces and surprise the world and surprise the Putin. Now about the war, Nick. Can you imagine that we have this war almost 9 years? In 2.5 months, it would be 9 years. And in year 2014, we already stopped the Putin and stopped his scenario to divide Ukraine and create the project Novorossiya. Half of Ukraine should be under Russian power. And we then together threw them away from Mariupol, from Lysychansk, from Severodonetsk, from Slaviansk, from Kramatorsk, from Konstantinovka. If you wake me during the night and say me, I know exactly how we make free every single town on the Donbas. Most of them now are occupied. Mariupol, Severodonetsk, Lysychansk, Rubezhne, Popasne. And I have no doubt they will be free. Why it's happened? Because we are together. And with that situation, this is the real disastrous war. When we stop Putin on the front line with brave Ukrainian soldiers, Putin opened the war against our children, against our women, against our elderly people. And he now spent more cruise missiles and Shahed drone against civilians than on the front line. What was happening during the last 24 hours? The air alert could take 5 hours in Kyiv. Again, missiles. During the last 24 hours, 17 hours it was no electricity during the winter. No water, no heating, no electricity. And my nation demonstrates unique features. What is the difference between Ukraine and Russian? Russians are afraid of Putin. If that would be that type of pressure, Russians accept. And that was exactly the same scenario because Putin thinks that Ukrainian will act exactly like Russian. If he attack us, we flee from the country, like Russian fled from the mobilization. Instead of that, we are even stronger. The first hours of the 24th February, we have in our office on Lavskaya 2,000 people who want to enlist in the armed forces of Ukraine. And the world is different. World before 24th of February and world after 24th of February. And what is the main messages for Putin? And I'm happy to hear that yesterday from the Secretary Austin. First message. In the present world, no nation in the world can define the future of the other sovereign nation and can have a veto right for their future. And second message. No nation can change the border of other sovereign nation by force. That is the main principle of the international law. And we never can accept these type of things. Next position is, what is the, and now I'm closer to the Nick question. What is the peace? Does there exist any other nation in the world who want peace more than we Ukrainians? No, because we pay the highest price for that. How we understand the peace? There is no Milley version, Yermak version, or anybody else. There is just two versions of the peace. Version number one is Putin version. What is the peace under Putin terms? This is a ceasefire. For what? For preparing, renewing the fighting combat capabilities of Russian armed forces. And for that, we have several recommendations, Nick. First, please, don't trust Putin. I know what I'm saying because I 5 years was a president and have a very difficult talks and trying not to stay alone we have the whole G7, the whole NATO behind. Don't trust Putin. And second, don't be afraid of Putin. Learn from Ukrainians. We demonstrate that Putin is not so strong, not so united. He is evil, but we are stronger. With that situation, is it acceptable, the Putin version of ceasefire? No. Because we have in our history several agreement, memorandum, deal with Putin, and just want to remind you. In year 1994, we have a Budapest memorandum with a firm security guarantee from Russia and from whole world when we voluntarily give up third biggest nuclear arsenal in the world. Can you imagine if we have a nuclear weapons, does it happen what we have now? Most probably not. But we, that time, trust. In year 1997, we have a so-called big treaty with a security guarantee from Russia. On paper, ratified, everything. This is not save us. After any other Russian obligation in the year 2014, 2015, we have a 3 memorandum, protocol, and agreement in Minsk, where we have absolutely clear message. Respect territorial integrity, withdrawal of foreign troops, withdrawal of heavy artillery and weapons, release all the hostages in these documents. And the most important thing in this document, this is the Putin's signature on it. Does it save us from the intervention? No. What is the conclusion? Don't trust Putin. Putin understands only one thing, strength and our unity. How we can reach that? You said through negotiation. Fully agree with that. Without negotiation, it's not happening. When we can start negotiation? It's already going on. And we have a very good, very well prepared, very professional negotiator, which is supported by you and by the whole world. Do you know the name of this negotiator? Armed Forces of Ukraine. Putin was against to withdraw his troops from Kyiv, and we stay since the very first hours on the 24th in Kyiv with the weapons in the hands. All our team in the battalions of the territorial defense having the Putin troops 2 kilometers from my office. We have a successful negotiation and threw Putin away from Kyiv region. Then we have a successful negotiation through Putin away from Chernihiv region. Then from Sumy region. A few months ago, we have a very great successful negotiation round and threw Putin away from the Kharkiv region. And a few days ago, from Kherson region. 50% of the occupied territory, because of this negotiation, returned back under Ukrainian sovereignty. What other negotiator you are looking for? My recommendation. No. So it would be no Milley version, no Yermak version, but Poroshenko version. Please accept that.
If, and I'll just ask one question, we'll go to the audience. If there is only total victory, that's the only option. If the Zelensky peace plan, which includes Russia must reaffirm the territorial integrity of Ukraine, Russia must withdraw all its troops, and a special tribunal and international compensation, if that is not negotiable. So if Ukraine thinks that it can win, if the peace plan is non-negotiable, which is what you're saying, does the US, does Canada, does the West need to acknowledge to its public 2 things? That there is a threat of escalation by Russia, perhaps including nuclear, that the West needs to be willing to accept, and that number that I said, $105 billion so far from the United States alone in 10 months, does the West need to tell its population, its public, that that kind of support is going to be needed, perhaps even indefinitely?
I tell you two things. First of all, about the population. Now for the Ukrainians, it's extremely difficult to be without money, without job, without electricity, without houses, to be internally displaced person. Enormously difficult. But I want to send a message from Ukraine. We are not traded by our democracy, by our freedom, by our sovereignty, for the electricity, for commodities, for gas, for oil, and we count on your support. You are absolutely right about $105 billion. I know something about army and about money. This is the cheapest version for the United States to protect global security, because this is not a war for Ukraine and about Ukraine. This is the war for the global security. Because if we will not win this war, Russia will transfer the nuclear technology to Iran. We have a significantly more instability in the world, and that would cost to the world significantly more amount of money.
And quickly,
That's
escalation?
why-
Should the West be worried about escalation? Should the West be worried about possible escalation if Russia's about to lose?
Look, we should create the condition that escalation, we do not allow Putin to make an escalation. How we can do that? 5 steps. Not strategy for peace, but strategy for victory, because we can have a peace only through the victory, our joint victory. Point number 1. 3 sub-point in point number 1. This is weapons, weapons, and weapons. And this is the maximum the West can do for make peace closer. Point number 2, sanction and embargo. 1 year ago, they said, no, this is not possible. Please, everything is possible. We should now cut the price to Russian gas, cut the price to Russian oil. Because can you imagine that $900 million a day the Western world finance Russia? And Putin spend this money for killing Ukrainians. What are the arguments you need for make sanction exterritorial, for cut and stop buying any Russian products, not only oil and gas? Russia toxic. And everybody who touch Russia is toxic. And we should be decisive. Point number 3. This is the justice. How we can finish the war without justice? If anybody has any doubts, please not see the film about Bucha, about Chernigov, about Irpin, about Vorzel, about Gostomel, about Trostianets and Sumy region, about Mariupol. Yesterday we have very, very good film. Please pay time and see that.
And I think
we need a justice, and we need a Hague tribunal for that. Without that, it would not be a peace.
And I think we're all going to get a link to that.
Point number 4. This is the deputinization. Deputinization means not kill the Putin. Please don't. We should cut any Putin and Russian influence in our own countries, in US, in Europe, for NGO, for the mass media, for everything. Stop for financing doing this dirty money, for corrupt our bureaucrats and our politicians. Stop doing that. And point number 5, or maybe point number 1, maybe the most disputable for some of them, but please believe, without that nothing happens. We have here the session about what security are now. Very important question, Peter. Anybody think that this is the Security Council of the United Nations? Not anymore, because the permanent member of the United Nations Security Council is an aggressor. It is not working. It is a ruined post-war security system. Any other No, one instrument. North Atlantic Treaty Organization. How we can settle that? Immediately. Do the same like you do with Sweden and with Finland. Give Ukraine membership in NATO, because NATO needs Ukraine even more than Ukraine needs NATO. Not everybody applauds. I think, and why it's important? Because last year...
Quickly, because I want to get to the audience. So
yeah, give me the film there, who is not applauded. And last year, Peter, remember, I sit exactly on this place. And here was Karamurza. You remember, he was moderator of my communication. And my message exactly 1 year ago was, you still have a chance to avoid the full-size aggression of Russia. 2 recommendations I said 1 year ago. Weapons, immediately give the weapons that Putin understands that we can stop them. And sanction. And this is the only chance how to avoid an aggression. If you don't give weapons and not introduce the sanction, that would be an aggression. Please see my speech. Not everybody listened that. Same like not everybody today listen and applauding for NATO. Today, this is 3 recommendations. Again, weapon. Again, sanction. And NATO. Bravo.
All right, let's go to the go to the audience here. I see a microphone on this side. So anyone over here first, and then I'll turn to the other side. No, okay. So I see a microphone as well, and I see a hand. Yeah, right there. Right there. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you so much. We all have enormous respect for the country who is saving the world.
Introduce yourself, please.
I'm Leila Alieva. Now I came from the UK, but originally from Baku, Azerbaijan. So we met before. So my question is, are you too optimistic, maybe, saying that the world has changed after this war? Europe has already gone through similar situations, and it did change. It created EU and other things, but it repeats all the time, right? What makes you more optimistic this time and say that the world has changed? Do you think the lessons will be learned?
And quick answer, if you could, because we got to get to more questions as well. Sorry.
Okay. And the second question, do you think that probably regional capacities were not used to a sufficient degree? Remember, there was Guam. Maybe if there was enough investment, then maybe Russia would not dare doing that, probably because of the threat of resistance of 4 armies.
Quick answer, please, sir.
Am I optimist or not? Believe me, you cannot win the war if you are not optimist, if you are not believing your own victory. That's why when I have no army, no money, and have some embargo from the Western states for Ukraine when I was elected as the president, I don't have one tiny moment when I have any doubts about our victory. Because truth is with us, God is with us, and we have a fantastic nation. Am I optimist now? Yes. And on 24th of February, I go to office, take weapons together with thousands of Ukrainian people and go on the front line with the weapons in the hands to stop Russia. And I am optimistic about our victory. No doubt about that. Because we have absolutely different motivation from Russia. We protecting our values, our families, our children, and our soil, and our country, and our European choice. Russia has anything like that. Am I optimistic about the post-war structure? Less optimistic. And that's why, despite of the war, we should provide the reform. That's why we're demanding for the candidate status for the EU. And we're waiting the same for NATO. The rule of law, the freedom of press, the human rights, all the democratic instruments. We can win this war only if we can keep the democracy, not switch to the autocracy. And this is the great victory, because all the autocratic world think that they are stronger than the democratic free world. And in Ukraine, we demonstrate they are wrong. And democracy will win.
Jane Harmon. As you know, I was on the Maidan with Madeleine Albright in 2014 and part of the observer delegation to your fair and free election. One of the concerns then, and it remains, is the level of corruption in Ukraine, especially in the Rada and some other parts. I think that's a concern now of some in terms of giving aid for the future and in terms of your membership in NATO and EU. I'd just like you to address what is happening to reduce and hopefully eliminate the level of corruption in Ukraine.
Look, first of all, we know each other very well. I remember your visit with Madeleine Albright, and that was great to be in the Maidan and to have a free and fair election. Both elections, which I was responsible in here, 2014 and 2019, was brilliant from the democratic point of view. And about the corruption, before the 24th of February, I was the leader of the opposition. Now we are united, no opposition, until our victory. And I should criticize the government about the corruption. I should mention that during my process of the reform, we create absolutely independent National Anti-Corruption Bureau, Special Anti-Corruption Prosecution Office, the Electronic Declaration for Fighting Corruption, many of them. Here we have our activists for the non-corruption organization. They're doing a great job here. But my message, we definitely should fight the corruption even during the war. But I hate the idea when we're speaking about the corruption in general, this is the wrong thing. We should speak particularly every single case and monitoring that, delivering them till the court and the prison. Please, let's switch to this model, and that brings success.
One last quick question, one last quick answer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Scotty Greenwood, Washington, D.C. Let's assume that we all take every single one of your recommendations and do all of that. What is your advice about China? Because we know that Putin and Xi are aligned, and we're worried about China. Thank you.
Now I understand that U.S. paying lots of attention to China. Secretary Austin planned to go to the Southeast Asia. President Biden has on the main events on the G20 was not the meeting of 20, but the meeting between Biden and Xi. I know President Biden very well. He's a great diplomat and demonstrates a unique leadership in the world, how to stop Putin aggression. Great diplomat. Because I spent with him many, many hours. He make a joke that some weeks he speak with me more often than with his wife. And I strongly count on him and trust him. I have a meeting with President Xi. I know that he is not Putin. And it's possible to reach an agreement. But again, please, the future of the world is deciding in Ukrainian soil now. Not on Taiwan, not on China, not on somebody else. We should concentrate the efforts and stop the cancer in the center of Europe because of the Putin aggression. We should de-Putinize the world. And when we de-Putinize the world, definitely, we can build up absolutely new type of relation with China, no doubt.
There are two people who wanted to be here during this weekend. That is Andrei Yermak, who is the equivalent of the Chief of Staff to President Zelensky, and Alexei Danilov, who is the equivalent of the National Security Advisor to President Zelensky. You heard from Yermak yesterday. Why don't we turn it over to Danilov right now?
Мужність українських солдат. Про те, що наші люди, сидячи під російськими обстрілами, без світла, води, зв'язку та їжі, як ніколи вірять в перемогу нашої країни. Про те, що українська держава, незважаючи на всі спроби Росії зламати її, продовжує функціонувати. Працює економіка, виконуються соціальні зобов'язання, живуть люди. Я скажу одне – перемога буде за нами. Для нас перемога – це не лише перемога у війні і повернення до кордонів 91-го року. Для нас є також важлива перемога в мірі. Для цього нам з нашими союзниками необхідно створити архітектуру стратегічних ініціатив під час перехідного періоду. Цей період після закінчення війни та перед початком системного відновлення нашої країни буде не менш складним. На цьому шляху нас чекають багато викликів: відновлення економіки, відновлення інфраструктури, відновлення зруйнованого довкілля, подолання гуманітарної кризи. Ми також не можемо допустити внутрішніх конфліктів в суспільстві та його радикалізацію, розколи в політичних елітах. Адже, без сумніву, Російська Федерація не покине спробу розхитати нашу країну через гібридні атаки. Це завдання передбачатиме підтримку гарантій сталого миру для недопущення повторних агресій з боку Російської Федерації, притягнення Росії до відповідальності, євроінтеграцію та перехід до побудови України як передової європейської демократичної країни. Фундаментом для успішного проходження перехідного періоду є три складові: згуртованість суспільства, розбудова держави та інституційних спроможностей, встановлення верховенства права. Такі рамки перехідного періоду обумовлені потребами і запитами українського суспільства. Як показують опитування, українці як ніколи прагнуть встановлення повноцінного демократичного ладу, верховенства права, перехід від олігархічних та корупційних практик. Потужним є запит на відновлення гідності та справедливості. У питанні необхідності вступу до Євросоюзу та НАТО досягнуто національний консенсус. Ці запити і потреби мають стати базовою для функціональної держави та взаємодії між суспільством та владою. Основою успішного проходження України цього складного періоду є посилення спроможності державних інституцій. Перед нами стоїть непросте питання. Необхідно знайти баланс між глибокою трансформацією державних інституцій та безперебійним виконанням критичних функцій держави. І все це в вкрай складних умовах, коли обмежені всі види ресурсів. Рух до членства в Євросоюз для нас є неймовірною підтримкою на цьому шляху. Він створює орієнтири для впровадження стандартів державного управління. Це стандарти засновані на взаємно інтегрованих політиках і підході цілісного уровня, на забезпечення прозорості, підзвітності влади, верховенства права. Виконання держави критичних функцій також важливе і для підтримки та посилення рівня згуртованості суспільства. Українське суспільство виявило свою ініціативність, принциповість, здатність до самоорганізації та побудови і використання горизонтальних зв'язків. Це є потужним стратегічним капіталом в нашої країни, який необхідно зберегти та максимально посилити. І це може бути гарним прикладом для всіх демократичних країн, чиє суспільство також може бути мішенню для Російської Федерації. Ці процеси мають бути включені всі громадяни нашої країни. Ми будемо рухатись далі, розбудовуючи українську політичну націю. Вона вже будується навколо спільної візії майбутнього нашої країни, як мирної, сильної, безпечної та процвітаючої країни. Для підтримки розбудови нації нам необхідно створити політики, які будуть сприяти вільному розвитку української культури та культури національних меншин, формування спільної політики пам'яті, реінтеграції українців, яких дуже багато розкинуто по світу. Такі політики також мають забезпечити вільний розвиток особистості, забезпечення прав та свобод людини. Всі ці кроки будуть ставати поштовхом для економічного розвитку і політичної стабілізації, що зробить Україну надійним союзником. Найголовніше, вони стануть запорукою сталого миру. Дякую за увагу, дякую за честь виступити на форумі в Галіфаксі. Слава Україні!
Guarantees for Ukrainian security, and Ukraine as a model for other democracies. That's the message. President Poroshenko, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks to the Peter, and thanks to all of you. And I have a proposal to Peter. Maybe next year we can have a Halifax Security Forum in Yalta, or in Sevastopol, or in Simferopol. That would be a great idea.